Hello and welcome to the Athletic NBA show. It's Friday. I'm Dave DeFore. And that means it's Nerder. She wrote, joining me as they do each and every week, Seth Martnow and Mo Dakhil. What's up, guys?
It was disdainful, she wrote this week.
We're just getting through it, man. Like, this is like the banter portion of the podcast that I normally just jump through anyway.
I'm tired, so I don't have as much banter and mean vigor to come at Dave and Seth today. So
Miami nightlife
say something for me. Not even. I'm too old, man. I was
undefeated.
I'm too old. Like the everybody wanted to go to the next spot, and I was like, my next spot's the hotel. I'm gone.
Nice.
So, and I'm still tired.
Have you been to the beach at all out there? I mean,
no,
I live in a different world in California. Yeah, but the water out there is so warm and it's not going.
I'm here for work. Business trip, Dave. See, business trip. I'm here for work. Pumping out one mo things and all sorts of things. With that.
Yeah, this is why I didn't go. I mean, who wants to go to Miami and be stuck in a hotel working? That just doesn't sound like a good time to me. Guys, game 3 was last night. We're recording this Thursday. Game 3 was last night. The Nuggets looked like the Nuggets team that we have come to respect and appreciate, and no longer pat on the head like the kid brother of the league. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic made history, becoming the first teammates to ever have a 30-point triple-double in the same game in any game, much less game 3 of the NBA Finals. I want to start with those two guys. I mean, this is basketball being played at the highest level, literally the most intense competition, and they absolutely obliterated the Miami Heat last night. Those two dudes were on another planet.
I mean, they were phenomenal, just in the sense of the chemistry and everything that we've kind of expected from how they play together and so on. It was interesting, Dave, because the first half of this game, I thought there were only 4 players playing well in this game. Jokic and Murray for Denver, and I thought Bam and Butler for the Heat. And then I was just thinking, well, like, somebody else has to step up for one of these teams. Whoever gets somebody to do that, it's going to change the game. And yes, somebody did step up, Dave.
Yeah. Well, Christian Braun put up 15 points off the bench, and the Nuggets won by 15.
Now, felt like 40.
It doesn't
felt like 40.
Right. But it doesn't always work out that way so nicely. But that's really what happened. I mean, Christian Braun is kind of just found money for them. I mean, he's been a nice player, and he has actually done stuff for them during the playoffs, but they really figured something out with him in game 3. And Mo, you did the one Mo thing today on Christian Braun, and the way that the Nuggets sort of solved that Miami zone, which we've been talking about since, the Bucks series. It's almost an amoeba. It's like a matchup zone. They're able to switch back into man, and it was throwing the Nuggets off a little bit. But Christian Braun and his cutting was kind of the key to breaking that.
Well, I think that if you go back to game 2 and you watch it, and in the zone clips, the Nuggets spent way too much time trying to enter the ball into the high post, to Jokic.
They were trying to get him at the nail, yeah.
And the Heat did a great job denying it, even with the smaller guys, Gabe Vincent fighting and battling with him and all of that. And then in game 3, they moved him to the post. And that changed everything, because as soon as they moved him to the post, a lot of times the Heat would have 3-4 guys basically on the strong side, and it'd be a 2-on-1 on the weak side. And then there were just great cutting action. It was, there's one example where Jeff Green cuts along the baseline and then Brown cuts. And it's like, Duncan Robinson's sitting there going, like, I got to defend both of these dudes cutting. Like, I can't do that. It was too much.
It was also, they also used him entering the ball to him in the high post as a post up. There was a lot more times where he would, in game 2, it would be, whether it was Vincent or Martin, whoever was sort of 3-quartering, kind of semi-denying him the ball. In this game, he was able to really get the ball with them on his back. And then he basically just dribbled twice, and put them in the basket with the ball. Or if they came and doubled, then he hit someone on a cut. And so he just kind of was, we want to talk about like one thing that did, like one weird trick Denver did to win the game. It's like, oh, we're much bigger than these guys. let's play like it. And it started with Jokic.
Well, I mean, that was the secret to game one, is that the Nuggets were just so much bigger. And now, Michael Porter Jr. was a big part of that. I mean, just his size and length in general. And then, Christian Brown gets the minutes over him last night. You guys have any problem with that whatsoever? I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I think the only issue I have is sort of it's being talked about like MPJ got benched. I thought he's had a rough first half. I thought he had a very good stint in the third quarter. And then Brown came in and was great. And so they just didn't go back to him. I mean, the Nuggets, it's not unusual for the Nuggets to close with Bruce Brown instead of MPJ anyway. So it's just sort of that start of the fourth quarter slot that Brown was doing a lot of stuff and Malone rolled with him. Rather than it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was like a punishment for MPJ or something like that.
Well, that's how it's being spun, and it's beginning to piss me off. And I think that's really one of the problems with what we're looking at. He did a great job hustling on a rear view contest and I know I'm picking like small plays, but this is from a dude who is struggling all series. And we know when his offense struggles, his defense falls apart and things like that. And he was making some effort plays, the rear view contest. He had a great offensive rebound that ended up turning into an Aaron Gordon bucket because he missed a shot. And I think like there was just a lot of stuff where I thought his effort in the second half was much better. And I think that's part of it. He didn't make shots. And I understand Michael Malone going like, yo, Christian Brown's on a heater. I'm not taking him out.
Yeah.
You're rolling at that point. And I think that's one of those things there. Did he probably lose some minutes to Brown? Maybe. That's fine though. Like it's one of those things where like I could also see him coming out in game 4, hit his first 3 shots, and then we're talking about like, wow, this was the MPJ game. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility there. I just think with the narrative shifts too quickly to, he had a terrible first quarter, atrocious defensively, and then everybody wants to start piling on. And I felt bad even in game 2. Everybody's blaming him for the mistakes in game 2. And I thought a lot of other guys were bad and awful. Some of those Strus threes that he got was Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon fucking up a switch. KCP showing and not really communicating with Porter that, showing and recovering is not the same as switching. And there's a lot of stuff there in that stuff. I feel like he gets hung out to dry a lot. And I think that's kind of the unfairness a little bit of the narrative game.
Well, he had some big defensive plays in game 1. The biggest thing for me with MPJ, and it's been like this, I mean, his whole career, is that he came out early on. I thought he just kind of looked out of it in game 2, just not connected on either end really. And you mentioned if his offense is kind of failing him, his defense starts to fall behind. What stinks about this for MPJ, he's getting good looks mostly. I mean, there's a couple where he's forced, but he's mostly had good looks and they're dropping in and coming out. Like these are like makeable shots. They're not like hard ones. And he's not missing by much, but he's missing by enough that it looks like he's having an awful night when, his 1 for 5 could have easily have been 4 for 5 from 3. And I mean, these are the sort of misses that he's had. So, I mean, that's rough, but Christian Brown's defense on the perimeter and speed has actually been, I think, a game changer for the Nuggets. I mean, he's just so much faster than Michael Porter, able to jump some of those passing lanes. And it's a guy that Miami's had to think about a little bit more on the defensive end.
I think even that's going too far. I don't want to say that like represented like MPJ's defensive activity keyed Denver or anything like that. But I think it was emblematic of the way from the start of the third quarter, their level of defensive activity across the board was just higher than it had been. And he was certainly a part of that. Mo mentioned the rear view contest. He had another play where he almost made a great play where there's a ball flying out of bounds. And I forget which guy in the Heat was going to save it. And he read where the save was going to go. He couldn't keep the ball in bounds himself. But it was just like, being locked in and making anticipation plays. And just their whole team they weren't like over rotating to the ball as they have at some other point, but they were doing a really good job of, everyone on the floor would give just a little bit of help, a little dig, a little extra hand in the cookie jar on the ball. And all that served to slow the ball movement of Miami down and really reduce them to a lot of one-on-one, a lot of, Jimmy pounding the ball, and they weren't able to get the kind of open looks that they got in game 2. It's interesting. They actually, if you look at kind of some shot quality stuff, their threes are actually slightly better overall in game 3 than in game 2. However, there were many fewer of them that were just completely open. In the second half, they took 21 threes. Only 3 of them were uncontested. Now, they have good enough shooters that they can make the contested ones, but if you're getting a bunch of contested threes, sometimes you're going to go 4 of 18 like they did on contested threes, and you're not getting the open ones to kind of, they get the 3 open ones in a row. That's a quick 9-0 run, quick timeout. They didn't get those opportunities in the second half. Even if Denver had a bad possession, it was one bad possession of defense.
And I think it's important also to understand how much Miami's offense dictates their defense too, because it allows them to set up a zone. It allows them to kind of set the parameters when they're running back in transition. Then it's where you get situations where, oh crap, Kyle Lowry's on Aaron Gordon. Like that's a mismatch. We got to send a double. Like there's all sorts of different scenarios with some of these cross matches, and it all goes back to the same stuff we keep talking about. The Nuggets are bigger. They're the better team. Like at the end of the day, when we look at these rosters, they're the better team with what the talent they have. I mean, Miami has overachieved. And then when you have guys that Caleb Martin has fallen off with his shooting, Strus he started out pretty well as a playmaker. We thought it was going to be the Max Strus, Chris Paul type game. And then he kind of fell off. And I think eventually they couldn't get a third or fourth guy to really sort of step up for them. And then Jimmy and Bam eventually ran out of juice.
Yeah. And there's nothing more demoralizing than missing a shot and then having Jokic beat Bam down court, which happened just over and over. I've watched so many Jokic games at this point in his career, and it never ceases to amaze me how in the fourth, he's the fastest guy on the court in the fourth quarter every single game, and he can somehow just beat the most athletic guys in the league to the basket and get it inside position every single time. He's the most like unique player that of modern times for sure.
Just hearing you say that, it reminds me a little bit. I'm going to make this is not a player comparison, but a former Nugget. It's almost like I don't want to say it's a ball comparison, but it is a little bit like people. You remember back about a decade ago, people would be like, "How do you let Andre Miller beat you?" And it's like Andre Miller's been doing this to people for a long time. And if you've been paying attention, as you said, like especially the last couple of years, after he's gotten himself in really good shape, he may not look like it, but Jokic can pick him up and put him down and get down the floor. And that's a key part of his game. I mean, frankly, I think Miami deserves credit over the course of the series for how good their transition defense has been overall. I mean, you compare them to I think Mo said this last night during the game that Anthony Davis is still trying to catch his breath.
Yeah.
From trying to chase down Jokic. So it's happened once or twice to Bam. But there's faster players and better athletes than Bam that Jokic has beat down the floor.
I mean, and the thing, he played the entire second half of game 3. I mean, the guy does not actually need rest at this point in the year. I mean, yeah.
I'm sure he rested a ton after the game. Yeah. But I think no, I know. But the more important thing, I think, when you just look at this is the thing about Jokic that's so tough. It's almost the fact that it's so slow sometimes that it kind of catches you off guard in that regard. In that, like, oh crap, like you overreact, and then because you overreact to his being slow, it opened up something else for him in those opportunities and stuff like that. And I don't mean to disparage it. He's not super slow or anything. It's just like when you look at the athleticism and stuff like that, I think we would say Bam has the advantage speed wise, but you're just saying the moves he can make on guys and how seamless it is with those things. That's what kind of just makes him such a damn tough cover. And I don't know how hard this really felt like for him at times. If like this 30-point triple-double, 30, 20, and 10 triple-double, I don't know how hard it was.
He's basically, you can't stop him inside. If he gets on the block and he has the ball, he can just score at will. You can't leave him open from 3 because he's automatic. I mean, legitimately, just automatic every single time he puts up an open 3. So you can't sag off of him because he's going to take the shot. And then if you come up, he's going to dribble around you. I mean, I just don't know what the options are with him. They did the thing where they turned him into a scorer, and that was successful for them. But Jamal Murray also had a bad game. Jamal Murray also had a really bad game, and they won by 3. The Miami Heat, they had basically a perfect game, and they won by 3. So I just, I think that now, 3 games in, we know what we know. The Denver Nuggets are a better team than Miami. Miami was going to fight an uphill battle to win this series no matter what.
I think so. I made a noise there, and it's you said the score. Him. You said the score turning him into score. Like Denver had like a 125 offensive rating in game 2. Yeah. They scored the ball fine, and we're focusing on the things they did offensively. When I think the reason they lost game 2 and the reason they won game 3, much more on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
and that's that's where we do have to give credit to Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray battle. Like he got switched on Jimmy a couple times, and we've seen Murray kind of no contest when he ends up on a bigger guy. Something didn't do that last night. Third quarter, MPJ was really solid. Brown, obviously, Bruce Brown. They, Caldwell Pope didn't foul 3-point shooters.
Don't let him off the hook. Yeah. He was bad. Yeah. He was bad. Don't let him off the hook.
But I want to go back to the Jamal Murray thing. Part of this is, I watched the way they defended Jimmy Butler in the first half. Man, they were either sending a double or shading 2 extra guys that way, and it was opening up shooters. I mean, just like the first 2 games. And I do think in the second half, Jamal Murray kind of took on the Jimmy Butler assignment a lot. I mean, he was waving guys off when they were trying to come over, and he just did a good job, I thought, of being big, getting his chest out, keeping Jimmy off the block, forcing him to shoot, either that floater or the fadeaway or pass out. And then they did a better job of waiting to send the help until Jimmy picked the ball up. They were sending help when Jimmy was getting into his post up. And then later on in the game, they waited until he picked the ball up, and it made a big difference. He was having to pass out of some of these shots that he likes to hit.
They did a much better job of being sort of disciplined and solid. This is sort of this almost the psychology of 3-pointers going in early or not. It probably plays into this. Like Mo and I rewatched a lot of game 2, and we're noting, Mo, you're noting how jumpy Denver was at a lot of fakes and stuff like that. It's like, all right, if Caleb Martin's going to pump fake a 3 and jab step on you, okay, go ahead. But he's made a couple, so now I'm jumping in the air and he's getting penetration. They did, especially in the second half, like everyone across the roster, Porter Jr., Brown especially, they stayed down on pump fakes. They didn't overreact to moves. They were disciplined in, if you're going to make that shot, cool. What Bam ended up with? What he ended up with 22 on 21 shots again. Like he made some of those mid-range shots. Cool. Make it like there was one play in the game where Bam like made an aggressive move and actually drew like contact and a foul on Jokic. Other than that, it was again much like game 1. We're fine if you score 20 some on those shots.
And I think also we have to be careful here because like we did it after game 1 too. Oh, Miami has no chance. It's all over. Like we're so quick to kind of say that.
Oh no, not the hotel Wi-Fi has struck Mo and he's frozen.
Sidelines, guys. Like, yeah, like this team isn't going anywhere. Yeah, it's better now. But I froze.
Yeah, you froze. You're good. You're good. Oh, you're back.
Well, I mean, that's just an evil genius on the other sideline. And I think the ultimate thing is, Spo with just one day to kind of prepare, like he's going to have something else. I'm not ready to, I still think Denver wins this series. It wouldn't be surprised if they win game 4, but I just want to be careful of the whole, they don't have answers. If they make a couple of shots early, it changes things, and it allows their defense to get set. If they come out a little bit better in the second half, I don't know what we're talking about in terms of this game. Like, I think there was a level of, from their part, some of Denver's defense for sure, but I think some of it too was just like, I'm tired. We got to remember, this is a team that played a 7-game series, and the other team had a ton of rest. When you're talking about Jokic being so spry and ready to go in the fourth quarter, yeah, he didn't have to tackle AD from games 5, 6, and 7. I think there's some of that stuff, but I just want to be careful in the way we're just ready to be like, there's no way they can't pull off a game 4 win.
Well, what sort of changes? Okay, because it's time for Miami to actually, they got to make some changes, right? They've got to make another adjustment. What's the next move for them? Do you guys think, or is it just a matter of play better? I mean, like, are we at that point where these two teams, like, strategically, there are no countered moves? It's just you got to play better. Jimmy's got to play better. Bam's got to play better.
I don't think some of that. Oh, go ahead, Will.
Go ahead.
I don't think we're at that point where it's just, hey, there are no more moves. I mean, I for one would like to see Cody Zeller not play at all. And I think, I honestly, when Jokic goes out, I'd go small with Highsmith. I thought he's been pretty good for them in this playoff run in the limited minutes he plays, and then he doesn't play a game. And I think that's something there that I think I'd rather go with him in that instance instead of going with Zeller. I think it's just, he giveth and taketh away. He one good play on the other end is a turnover on the next play. And it's just like so many different things like that from him. And I think that's something I would start with. I think they need to trust their offense and their continuity in their offense more and continue to stay with it. We're not making shots. All right, run it again. It's like Novocaine, man. Just give it time. It always works kind of deal and go with it.
I think that would probably be my last night. I think in the first quarter, we were noticing that both teams were sort of riding their two main guys, and we're wondering. I was wondering more from the standpoint of Murray, especially because he's a guy who has looked tired later in games at times. But both teams really, like, the Miami's offense was very much just like Jimmy Bam pick and roll over and over again. And I think they need to a little bit better balance of getting some of those, those split cuts, those fake DHOs, those small exchanges that gave Denver some trouble. It gave to just a little better balance of that. And then, I think they need more, especially from Jimmy. I think we haven't really seen much of a Jimmy, quote unquote, Jimmy game in a while. There was one play in the first half where he kind of hit Jokic with a hesitation and then exploded to the basket. And we were like, oh, maybe he's got something tonight. And I'm not sure he had another really explosive play offensively other than that.
And it's just so important. And I just think, again, this is like the ankle injury and stuff kind of beginning to hit him a little bit. And I think that's one of those things where, like, they're not going to win if Jimmy's going to be kind of passive Jimmy. And there are times where he's passing up on layups to make kick out plays on where earlier in the playoffs he'd get into a guy's body and draw a foul. So I think that's kind of the important thing to watch for in game 4 is what kind of aggression we're getting from Jimmy.
Well, I took a look real quick while you guys were talking there at Jimmy's stats since he hurt his ankle. Shooting 41% from the field, 31% from three. I mean, on less than 3 attempts a game, only 23 points. Now, at the beginning of the playoffs, when he, did the Jimmy Butler thing where we were all calling him Michael Jordan, it was only, a few games, but he was shooting like 60% and then 43% from three. I mean, it was just, his shot has just completely dropped off. And you can see it, actually. It looks like he doesn't have a lot of lift. It's very flat. I mean, ankle, look, and I've been the guy saying this from the mountaintop since I started doing this job. We treat ankle injuries very unrealistically when it comes to NBA players. I mean, he missed one game for an ankle injury that would likely put a normal human being out for like 6 weeks.
Well, none of these dudes are normal human beings.
Absolutely. Right. Like, so, it's not surprising to me that he doesn't have it, especially late in these games. Like, you can just see it. It's just, and so Denver being more disciplined, not biting on those pump fakes. I mean, it's taking away options for him. He does so much of his decision making mid pump fake. He makes passes that way, draws fouls that way, and that's not there anymore because I just don't think that they're as worried about it.
And to get back to where we started, this is why we thought this was a bad matchup for Miami to begin with, is because Denver's so big. Like, there's stuff he could do to anyone else he's played in the playoffs where, all right, shots not falling, I'm just going to bully you. He's not bullying Aaron Gordon. That's just not.
He's not bullying Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is big enough and stout enough that he can hold up to it. I mean, this is like, there isn't really a physical mismatch that Jimmy Butler can take advantage of like he could in previous series. I mean, Derek White couldn't hold up to this, but Murray is pretty thick. Like he's actually did a good job. Like for Murray, it's about, will he fight every single time, right? It's not a question of can he do it? It's will he? And he did it. I thought he did a good job in the second half, but I wonder how much of that is that ankle with Jimmy. And we'll never find out. because it's Jimmy Butler. And that actually, I respect that a lot.
You got to buy the $100 cup of coffee in order to find out.
You do wonder though, like there's times where it's like you get like they get a situation where Christian Brown gets switched on to him and you're, oh boy. And then Jimmy gets into like his pivot bag and Christian Brown is just staying solid, keeping his hands back. Is that Christian Brown playing good disciplined defense? Yeah. If Jimmy was feeling a little bit better, if he had a little more bounce, if he had a little more explosiveness, could he slither by? Could he explode upwards instead of doing all these pump fakes and pivots? Maybe. But it's still, still credit again for Denver for not overreacting and not slapping at the ball and not giving away the cheap fouls that a guy who's maybe struggling with his jump shot can feast on.
We talk about Miami and their conditioning. Hey, the Nuggets, those guys stay in the weight room. I mean, they really do. Like Christian Brown, you can see the strength that he's got. I mean, I talked about Jamal Murray, and Jokic might be the strongest guy in the league. Like when people talk about having to defend him inside. So they're able to match some of that physicality. And we don't think about it because, they play such a alluring offensive style. And we tend to think those guys are soft, but man, that team is tough. You guys got anything else before we start talking about Chris Paul? No,
let's get to Chris Paul.
This has been a fun final so far. I like everyone worried about Denver and Miami for no good reason because we don't, I don't work in advertising. I work, in basketball. This is great basketball, and everybody's watching it, so it's good.
Today's show is brought to you by Philo. Visit philo.tv and use the promo code NBA Show to get 50% off your first month. There's nothing better than unwinding, watching a little TV every now and then, but the hassle of finding what to watch, and to be fair, the cost of cable just doesn't make it worth it. That's why I completely cut the cord. And if you love TV, Philo is your solution. Philo has shows, movies, and live TV for just $25 a month. No contracts, no commitments, no hassle, just a better way to watch TV. Philo also has unlimited DVR for 1 year, so you can save all those shows that you're probably never going to get around to watching. It also allows multiple profiles and multiple streams, so everyone in the house can have their own saved shows and up to 3 streams at the same time. And if you can't get enough TV, there's no better way to watch because Philo has over 70 channels, including BET, VH1, AMC, and Vice. If you're still not convinced, try it yourself with a free 7-day trial. Sign up today at philo.tv. That's philo.tv and use promo code NBA Show to get 50% off your first month.
Anyway, some news yesterday on my soft day off.
News?
It was something. I mean, listen, man.
It's news. Yeah. No, stop it.
Could have done it today. Today.
No,
There's no game today.
It's more just like there was, they were maybe going to do something and maybe aren't going to do something. So go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
Well, this is a nice soft toss to out into the zeitgeist, right? Like the draft is coming up. So we get the news yesterday that the Phoenix Suns have decided they're going to part ways with Chris Paul one way or the other, either trade him or waive him. There was also a possibility floated that they would waive him, and then once he cleared waivers, maybe he would re-sign with the team, which might save them some money. Either way, it seems like that partnership or whatever is about to end. We talk about Chris Paul year 1, year 2, and then by year 3, we start to see things fizzle out. So it's still following that pattern. But number one, Mo, I got to ask you just straight up, because before we get to the Chris Paul part of this, Matt Ishbia, the owner of the new owner of the Suns, since he took over the team, they traded for Kevin Durant, they fired their coach, and now they're going to ship Chris Paul out of town. And it was announced, it's been leaked essentially. This is a lot, man. Is this just new owner, new toy? Let me put my hands on it. I mean, feels like a lot.
I think so. I think part of it too was there were questions of whether Monty should keep his job after that. Listen, it's not like he's firing the most amazing coach ever. You can go look at the fact that he didn't connect at all with DeAndre Ayton, and I think some of that's on Ayton. Had issues with Jay Crowder, and that would have been an important piece for them in this run, I think. And there's a lot of stuff within that for Monty where yeah, okay, I could see the organization firing him. Some of it is, Dave, yes, new owner, new toy, let's do things and stuff like that. But also, we were all kind of saying, you have to do something with the CP contract. And so I don't know if it's fair to say, like, when they finally do something with that CP contract, oh, what the, are they
What's
doing? And all,
happening here? Yeah.
all that stuff. I have questions for the reasoning for it, but I think this is one of those things. And I don't think they wanted it leaked. I think that's the thing that really hurts them in this. This leaking basically takes away any opportunity to possibly trade Chris Paul, because now teams are like, oh, they're just going to waive him. And then we could try to sign him for the cheap. And he already has 15.6 million or whatever it is already banked. And I think that's something that might have been the problem for them with what they were going for. But I don't think this is a Matt Ishbia thing with all those things. And I think every team makes that KD trade.
Seth, this is
this
getting ahead of the news story?
I mean, first of all, this is Nuke Lelouch. I want to announce my presence with authority. I'm going to make the big trade. We're going to get it done. I don't care if we got to throw Cam Johnson in. I don't care if we got to put get it done. Then, moving on from the coach, like any individual of these moves is certainly defensible, and we would probably, like, on balance, agree with all of them individually. It's just sort of the messiness of it, the impatience of it. Like, yeah, you're gonna move on from Chris Paul, but why? Why is the discussion to the point where maybe Chris Paul and Chris Paul's camp feels like they need to leak it now? Like, there's something has gone wrong for that to even if everyone knows what's going on. Like, that's a.
But like, here's the thing, Seth. How many times do we say, whether privately or publicly, like, who cares about the optics? Yeah, it's messy. It's going to be messy. There's no way you're going to do this and it's not going to be messy. So fuck it. And excuse my language. I'm sorry if you have kids listening to this. But why just like, okay, it's going to be messy then. Let's get messy then and figure this stuff out, and then go and start building a team, because you only have a 2 or 3 year window with Kevin Durant, if you could even keep him healthy for that long. And I think that's going to be an important aspect of it. So, like, yeah, they're going to have to be aggressive.
Can I be honest as to why I think the messiness is a flag for me? It's new owner with shadow GM.
Yeah, that's the
part that's sort of the Isaiah Thomas bit is sort of floating over all of this. If it's like if there hadn't been an ownership change, or it had been some rando like Walmart heir or something like that had bought the team and we didn't know who they were, and James Jones was making these moves, we probably feel much more how you're talking about it. But it's sort of the I'm here, look at me with my Hall of Fame buddy.
Look at me keeping the basketball away from Nikola Jokic in the middle of a playoff game and flopping.
Yeah, I mean, that part was stupid, but Mark Cuban didn't do stupid stuff when he came into the league. I mean, like, no, I get it. And you're right about that. And there's a lot of things I don't like about that being the guy in charge or shadow GMing the term you put and stuff like that. Let's also talk about, I thought they made a great hire. Frank Vogel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're making all of these bozo decisions and things like that. I thought they made a great hire right there. And we've said, you have to figure out what you're going to do with Chris Paul. You have to figure out what you're going to do with DeAndre Ayton. The options for Chris Paul, probably not that good.
That's the truth, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, what else do they have that they could do? I mean, let's talk about this. So, I mean, they haven't waived him yet. They could trade him theoretically. Like, again, the draft is, coming up in a couple of weeks. So theoretically you could trade him, but I think he just makes too much money on this contract. He's only guaranteed $15 million next year. So waiving him,
but you have to guarantee it before, like, it's like right after the draft, right? Correct?
Right. So they save some money by doing that, but like, it's a step back for the team. Like, I mean, how do the Phoenix Suns replace Chris Paul? Much less, where does Chris Paul go, which we'll talk about. But how do the Phoenix Suns? This is a team that should be competing for a title next year. They have Devin Booker, they have Kevin Durant. I mean, are we maybe looking at a scenario where they're looking as, Devin Booker is their nominal point guard, and they're just looking for another wing out there to play next to him and Kevin Durant? Or are they going to go out and try to find a point guard? I mean, is this a potential Kyrie Irving sign and trade destination? I mean, the options are limitless in a messy environment with a team that should do well next year. Like they should have a really good team
Well,
next year.
no, we have to see what the team looks like. They still have
Kevin
a
Durant and Devin Booker gives you a hell of a head start.
for sure, and
Yeah.
and that's a lot. But I also think you still got to fill out the rest of the roster, and
Mhm.
those are the things there with what they have. I mean, when you say like what do they do with Chris Paul? I mean, I think honestly the easiest decision is probably to just waive him, because I don't think there's a trade that brings back anything of real substance. I think the major piece that will bring back stuff is DeAndre Ayton, and I think there's interest around the league for him, and I think you could turn him into multiple players with that. In terms of what you do in the point guard position, I think they have to get creative. I think some of it's going to fall on Devin Booker's hands. I think they're going to need to find a guy on the market. Gabe Vincent, I believe, is a free agent. I mean, that might be something, like who knows? Like there are things that they got to try to do. They're going to have to be creative and aggressive. That's the most important thing.
Gabe Vincent would actually be good there.
I look forward to Gabe Vincent graduating to the ranks. So, that's a tough contract in about 3 months.
Today's show is brought to you by Front Door. Download the Front Door app and get a free video chat. We all have that long, incredibly nagging home to-do list that we keep putting off. It's full of annoying stuff that just needs to be fixed. A dripping dishwasher, hole in the drywall, or maybe your dryer is not actually drying your clothes. Well, wouldn't it feel great to get all that done? Well, now you can, and it's easier than ever. Introducing Front Door, the all-new one-stop home repair and maintenance app. Front Door lets you video chat with experts in real time so you can diagnose the problem faster. Sometimes you can fix it yourself on the video chat, or Front Door will send you a list of vetted and trusted pros to come out and help solve the problem. With a Front Door membership, it's easy to cross things off your home to-do list and enjoy that feeling of done. Download the app now and get a free video chat with an expert to start solving your problems today.
I don't know, man. I think he's going to be a solid player. Okay, let's talk about the Chris Paul part of this. I don't know what sort of contract he's going to be looking for. He could sign a veteran's minimum if he wanted to, which opens him up to everywhere. My assumption is he's going to try to go to a contender. I mean, this is should be Chris Paul ring chasing season. A lot of people make the assumption it's going to be one of the LA teams. Now, if it was me and I'm looking at this and I'm Chris Paul, I'm probably leaning Clippers versus Lakers, just because I know I have a role on that team. I mean, he would be an upgrade over what they had Russell Westbrook doing this year, I think. What do you guys think about Chris Paul's options? And is there any team that's a contender that you guys can think of where Chris Paul would be brought in to be a starter?
No, that's what I was going to say.
That's what I needed to know.
Chris Paul has to accept the Kyle Lowry role.
That's what
20 to 25 minutes. And if I'm a contender and I'm looking to sign him, I'm having that conversation with him. Look, you're not starting. I need you to come off the bench. I need you to be a good veteran leader, as much as Chris Paul can be. I know he annoys the hell out of everybody, but I need you to be, solid with everything. And you have to accept this role of like 20 to 25 minutes. We need you to come in and run offense. If he were to accept that, the teams I think he'd be great on is huge. And I think 20 to 25 minutes is the sweet spot for him where you can get the most out of him.
And you can point to what Lowry did this season and what he's doing right now. Look at how good, like Kyle Lowry is as fit and healthy this late in the year as he's been since that 2019 run.
Heat culture.
I mean, but also that was Lowry buying into the reduced role, not complaining about coming off the bench, being willing to be a 25-minute a night guy and just do his job. But if Chris Paul can do that, I think we're about to find out a lot about Chris Paul, to be honest with you, because he is going to have to be a different guy.
A couple levels, because you mentioned about like heretofore, he has been a guy who has not been super interested in taking a discount. Which that's descriptive. That's not a judgment in any way, shape, or form.
Shouldn't take a discount.
Let's put it this way: there are aspects of the CBA we are just leaving that were in large part designed to make sure that he could get paid. He and similarly aged and situated players could get paid deep into their 30s. Which, as president of the union, you could do that kind of stuff. But then also accepting that role, then he started talking thinking about it, like one of the biggest lacks we've seen on the Nuggets. We think the Nuggets are a very good team. One of the biggest lacks they have is they don't have another real ball handler, backcourt ball handler after Murray. And at times, especially when like Miami or other teams have extended their defense, like Bruce Brown has struggled with that a little bit. And so like with 20 minutes of Chris Paul as sort of a backup point guard and maybe swing Murray to the 2 for some minutes, is that interesting? Would he be an interesting organizer on the Celtics? Could he help the Bucks? Like we can go team. Would he be an interesting pickup for the Magic?
I mean, he Orlando. I mean, San Antonio would be kind of interesting. No.
But those are teams he's not going to go to,
right?
Because he's going to want to contend. Like that's the let's just get the. Yeah. I would love for him to do that again and recreate OKC Chris Paul. That's not going to happen, and I get it too. Like the chasing the ring, do all that stuff. I honestly think Boston's a great fit for him. And anybody that really has doubts and we have Malcolm Brogdon, we have Derek White. Just go back and watch all the turnovers Jaylen Brown had when he was trying to dribble with his left hand. You need somebody that can run offense in that second unit and get you organized.
And Brogdon might not be there next year. I mean, like this is the thing. And so this is all going to be in flux, but I think there's a handful of teams that are realistic Chris Paul destinations. And it's because, like you said, contenders. So I think it's Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets, Suns, potentially like going back to the Suns, Boston, Milwaukee, maybe Philly.
Philly, if Harden leaves, I think he's a good.
I got a wild card here, guys. What if he was playing for the Warriors? I mean, like, what if he went to Golden State?
That's not happening, Steph.
If they can move Jordan.
That's not happening. That's not happening. Now we're being silly.
That's that would have been the ultimate. That would have been so good.
I got one for you.
All right, you got one. Let's go.
Toronto would be really interesting if they lose Fred VanVleet.
But they're just not good enough. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, but we also got to remember this. The other team's got to want him too. If the other teams don't want him, I mean, there's an element of that, but he could come in there and put those guys in offense and kind of, I think, help Scotty Barnes get into the flow of being a playmaker and take some of that off. Fred VanVleet's great. He's a better playmaker than VanVleet. Oh, yeah. And I think that's something that's really interesting. I think Toronto's an interesting spot for him.
Look, the thing is, Chris Paul is still good. I just want to know. I'm laughing about this a lot because he's old, but he's still good. It's just a matter of he's not, this is not 2008 Chris Paul. This is 2023, and we got to look at it accordingly. What were you gonna say, Seth?
I just think a couple teams that we've mentioned. There's a little bit of a difficulty there in. You've got a first-year head coach in Milwaukee, in Adrian Griffin. You've got a first full-year head coach in Boston, in Joe Mazzulla, who's like 5 years younger than Chris Paul.
Which, by the way, bringing in Sam Cassell was a great move for him.
Yeah, so. We haven't heard a ton out of Toronto, but I think it's likely at this point we're probably getting a first-time head coach, based on the fact that we haven't heard a lot of the old names. So we have a first-year head coach in Toronto, and just wondering on a team that's trying to contend if that's a reason why those teams, aside from help on the floor, might be a little reticent to upsetting the apple cart in that way. Now, maybe you might argue that, well, good, get uncomfortable. That's like how the Heat do business, is they get uncomfortable and they are better for it. But I think that would be a reason why teams who otherwise should be interested in him might not be.
What about Dallas? Dallas, is that interesting to you guys at all? Chris Paul playing with Luka Doncic and potentially even Kyrie Irving if he's there, backing up Kyrie? No.
They need to actually have defenders and wings. Their attitude can't be, let's go get another small guard in their position, and I think that would not be smart for them.
Yeah. Well, wherever he goes, I hope it's somewhere fun. I hope it's at least somewhere that makes some sense and isn't just they gave me more money, so I'm gonna go play for.
Would New Orleans be interesting?
Ooh, maybe.
What is New Orleans?
I mean,
That's the question.
that's that's an off-season question. Once we see what they're doing, feels like a good place for us to wrap up, guys.
There's a lot going. We don't want to talk about the goings on. And
I don't want to talk. I don't want to go anywhere near
nope.
anything that's happening in New Orleans right now.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Not
There's
that
no
kind of
such
show.
thing.
Shout out to
Nothing
Jay
at all.
King for keeping me in the loop on that in the group chat. I really appreciate it. Shout out to you guys for listening. This has been Nerder, she wrote, on the Athletic NBA show. For Seth Partnow and Moda Keel, I'm Dave DeFore. Enjoy game 4 of the finals, guys. We're almost done.